Can a video just be 8 minutes of sobbing? I played a lot of Mirai Shinwa Jarvas to get enough footage of all the things I wanted, and it hurt a lot. It was about 2.5 hours of gameplay, and as I sit here recording this audio track, I am not looking forward to sifting through it for editing. But on the positive side, almost nothing happened. Jarvas is a game that's paced incredibly slowly, requires that the player grind up multiple things, and harshly punishes you for making choices like selecting the second option from a menu. If it wasn't for the fact that this game came out in 1987, I'd swear they had designed it around microtransactions. It's also amazingly buggy, and the only way I found to make real progress without spending another 4 hours of playing it was to cheat like crazy, and I still didn't reach the first boss. This is a game that actively hates you in a way that just putting it in and looking at it doesn't really convey. I'm going to start high level here. Mirai Shinwa Jarvas is the first Taito game to shift to a clamshell box. They won't use it with every release going forward, but they'll use it for most of them. The big thing that stops Mirai Shinwa Jarvas from falling down the memory hole is that it's the first Famicom game that lets you save your progress. Morita Shogi lets you save game replays, and there were 2 MSX games with internal batteries. But Jarvas is the one that changed things for the masses. And my cart's battery is actually still good. Observe as I turn it on, select continue, and there I am right where I left off, and will probably never go back to again. I want to give a quick explanation as to how battery backups work, and why a battery that's just a week or 2 off from its 34th birthday could still be functional. I'll spare you the physics of how transistors work and the logic behind flip-flops and latches. That would take way too long for what's already going to be a long video. The extremely simplified explanation is that transistors only use power when they change state. So when it's saving a game, it's consuming power. Of course, when it's saving, it's also powered by the console. The voltage from the battery is there just to hold the memory at its current state. And doing that takes no power at all, so the battery never runs down. And that's how it works in the perfect universe where we just design things on paper. In the real world, the chemical processes in the battery never stop, so it's always going to be breaking down. And transistors aren't perfect, so there's always a tiny drip of power that's going through them. Some back-of-the-envelope calculations tell me that these batteries should last about 30 to 50 years. So I'd actually expect them to start dying en masse in the next few years. I haven't had a dead Famicom battery yet, but I won't be shocked if we find one before Famidaily's over. When that happens, I'll be sure to talk about the challenges in replacing Famicom batteries. It's not as simple as doing them on NES cartridges. Okay, I think we can finally get to the game itself. The story is that mankind sent out ships to the stars, and centuries later, the ship Jarvas returns to the Earth with one sole survivor. That would be you as the player, and you land near your hometown in North America to discover that the world has been destroyed. There's nothing left, not even hamburgers. That line is straight from the manual. And so you set off to conquer the Earth, one continent at a time. Jarvas is an action RPG, and so you'll wander the world and hit enemies to get experience points. You don't get gold that way, though. Maybe the best way to approach this is to walk you through what I had to do. So here I am at the start of the game, an astronaut in a spacesuit with a little dagger. I also have 80 gold for some reason. Pressing the B button will bring up a menu where you can check your status, talk to people, or use items and magic. The select button brings up a more detailed status menu, where you can see all of your current numbers. There's no visible indicator of health or any other important stat. You'll have to bring up the menu and then check it to know how you're doing. So first things first, let's go to a town. And if I wander a little bit to the north, there's a road. We'll follow that around. While you're exploring, enemies will appear in the corners of the screen when you walk over certain squares. That also means that they have a tendency to walk right back off the screen. So we've reached the first town, now let's go shopping for a better weapon. None of the buildings are marked, so you just have to go into them to figure out what they are. This will be a problem in a moment. The first shop is the weapons shop, and we're going to spend all of our starting money on one weapon. As it turns out, the weapons and armor in this game are broken. Get used to the word broken, I'm going to be saying it a lot. They have a much smaller effect on how hard you hit and how much damage you can take than your own level does. You'll want to upgrade them eventually, but it shouldn't be a priority. This building is the quest giver's house, and you get your choice of quests, all of which are fetch quests. When you get here, you need to pick the top one, because picking the bottom one puts the game in an unwinnable state. The reason for this is the bottom one requires that you travel to the second continent to get the item. Getting to the second continent requires that you buy a pass for 100 gold. The only way to get gold is to complete these quests. So you can't complete the quest, you can't get any more money. You can't get any more money, you can't complete the quest. And if you save after you've done that, you get to start the game over again. While we're wandering around town, people will spawn in randomly just like the monsters in the overworld do. You can approach them and talk to them, but most of what they tell you is nonsense. This building is the guild, and here we can do 4 things. We can change our class, we can remove our class and go back to being an astronaut, we can duel somebody, or we can buy a travel pass. You're going to want to get a class. There are 3 options. The swordsman can use most equipment, the fighter has the highest hit points, and the wizard can use magic. Don't pick the wizard. Casting spells cost experience points, and not an insignificant amount either. The first spell you get is that for 50 experience you can teleport back to the starting position. To give you an idea of how much that is, to get to level 8 costs 500 experience. You can also do that by pressing this code on the second player controller. And that useless spell is the only spell you get for the longest time. So don't pick wizard. If you stay the astronaut, you can't use as much equipment, you have lower hit points, and you can't use magic, though that doesn't really matter. You'll definitely want to change. You can always change your class later. Of course, that resets some of the most important stats you have, and you'll have to start grinding them up from 0 again. So when you get to the first town, pick a class and stick with it. When you leave the guild, if you have enough experience, then you go up in level. This building is a medicine shop. Medicine is the only way to heal in the game, and a level 1 heal that recovers 50 hit points costs 65 gold. Here's the armor shop. Armor is extremely expensive, and I'd make that pretty much your lowest priority for a purchase. The final building in the initial town is the Boathouse. And no, it doesn't tell you that it's a boathouse. You just go in, you walk up to the guy automatically, and you're teleported far away. Fortunately, this is the island that's the location of the first item for fetch quests, so you can pick that up while you're here, return to the building, and you can get on a boat to someplace else entirely. You'll have to walk the long way around the Gulf of St. Lawrence to get back to town. Back to town, turn in the quest, get 200 gold. That's not nearly enough gold to do anything, so you take the exact same quest again, and you repeat, and repeat, and repeat. You'll have to do that exact same quest about 10 times before you're ready to move on. You'll also need to grind up some levels. I found that these blue guys give the best experience, and so I just found a spot where I could make them spawn over and over again and walk into my weapon. After a while, I think we're getting pretty strong. Let's go check out that second continent. We'll take that second quest, and we'll go see what's happening down there. Well, first things first, the enemies are a lot stronger. They don't take a lot more damage, though. As long as you don't get hit, you're fine. We'll pick up the item we need down here, right off the Amazon River. We'll also go explore this town. There's a weapon shop here that sells projectile weapons. You absolutely have to have one to make any kind of progress in the game, but they're also extremely expensive. I didn't have an extra hour to grind, so I didn't pick that up. If you walk into this house, this guy just automatically teleports you back to the start of the game. No warning, no sign, just enter and teleport. There is a trick to this. All of the event triggers in the game are broken. So if you enter a door and while it's transitioning hold down left or right, you'll just walk off the trigger path. Congratulations, you've broken the scripting, and you'll have to walk into the correct spot to continue. Well, let's go turn in that second quest. I bet it must be worth a lot since we had to go through so much trouble for it. We'll turn it in, and 200 gold. The exact same thing we got for picking up that jug, except we had to spend 100 gold to travel there, and had significantly more risk. This quest problem persists throughout the game. Quest rewards are extremely poor, and you'll often wind up losing money on them. At the same time, getting enough cash to make progress requires that you grind them out dozens of times. I think it's time that we duel. So first thing, make sure you're at full health if you're going to fight. But beyond that, it's a side-scrolling bout, and coming into contact with the enemy at all is fatal. They also just run up on you, so unless something happens where you can catch them in the air, you're going to have a pretty difficult time defeating them. That's a problem, because defeating them gets you fame, and you need fame to recruit troops. Winning a duel gets you 1 point of fame, and in the later stages of the game, you'll need a few hundred fame to recruit people. So start grinding. Did I mention that dueling costs 50 gold each, win or lose? So you'll need to grind for that gold so you can grind for that fame. Fortunately, dueling is broken. If you press B at just the right moment when it's about to start the duel, you'll pop open your menu. Close that menu, and you've got control of your character again. Then walk out the guild door, and you're told that you won the duel. You'll be auto-scripted back inside, but you'll want to walk back out and save before you do it again. The timing is pretty tight. I wound up doing it with a rapid-fire controller just to make sure it worked. Do this 5 times, or 2 pot-fetching quests, and now you can buddy up with the red guys who walk around the land. Each time you do that, you'll get 25 troops to your force. You have to have 500 to open the castle gate for the ruler of North America. The troops don't do anything. The quantity of them is just a key. We're finally at the castle where the first boss resides, and the game changes to a side-scrolling area. The B button still opens the menu, or throws a projectile if you have that option set, so you have to use up to jump. And this is where my long run ended. Without projectiles or a lot more medicine, I'm not going to make any further progress, and I'd have to do probably about 6 more laps of the pot quest to be ready for it. So that's how the game works. Let's get to a few more complaints. There's only a handful of background music, and it's all painful. You move extremely slowly, and you have to be almost at the edge of the screen to make it scroll. The result of all that is monsters either spawn right on top of you, or they're so far away that you'll never reach them. The pathetic range of the weapon doesn't change with anything that you purchase. The text is extra hard to read because it's spaced weirdly, and it's sometimes really hard to know where you're able to walk. It's amazing how bad Mirai Shinwa Jarvas is. I didn't even reach the parts where you could walk through doors that don't exist, or face a 15,000 gold grind when you can only earn 500 at a time. The game's awfulness even extends to the sequel novels. Yes, novels plural. One of them is about collecting the scattered parts of the spaceship Jarvas, and the other one has to do with the legacy of Jarvas, which the author apparently thought was the name of the main character. The only thing about Mirai Shinwa Jarvas that isn't completely wrong is the battery.